welcome to On the Grass. I'm very delighted this afternoon to be joined by Ash Donovan from Derbyshire FA and our guest for the second time on the Grass, Darren Moore. Great to have you on, Darren.
Nice to be here.
Good to be back on the podcast.
Yeah, it's always nice to be back and just catching up. And I'm really pleased to be in here this afternoon, so looking forward to it.
Yeah, the last time I had you on, it was obviously Pride Park and you were the honorary degree recipient.
Yeah.
So obviously today we're going to be talking a little bit more about your coaching career, but first, before we start that, we have an icebreaker game for you. Ash, do you want to explain?
Yeah, I'm going to go a little bit rogue, as I said before, so this could go either way. It's going to be 30 seconds, quick fire. Normally talk about like a team talk or situation. When I talk about April last year, I spoke about it before in terms of Vale away at Wimbledon, basically 3 points to guarantee promotion. Last 5 minutes in change room before the game, kind of what was touched upon in terms of, did you focus mainly on kind of the four corner models, more kind of psychological, social, tactical? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We'll go.
Yeah.
Timer ready?
Yeah.
We'll go 3, 2, 1, off we go. 30 seconds.
So for me, the biggest thing was not playing the occasion but the game, to focus on the team's strengths, trusting each other. Opportunities will come and we'll be ready to take them. So probably for me, it was more probably having a psychological point of view that we were a better team. We had all the right dynamics in the team for the game, and it was just about executing the game plan within our minds.
Flying, look at that.
There we go, 5 seconds to spare as well. There we go. So obviously in terms of, whistle as well. In terms of coaching, Darren, I mean, I know we spoke before this. You said this is kind of the first time you've spoken since leaving Port Vale. Can you talk to me how life is away from coaching? I know you said that you've spent a lot of time kind of reflecting and taking a bit of downtime. Can you just explain what that process feels like for you?
Yeah, so for me, since leaving Port Vale, you got to allow yourself that time to come off, really, because when you're managing and you're working with the dynamics of a football club 24/7, your mind is in the fast lane in terms of you never stop. So even on what people would suspect days off, you never are. Your mind's constantly still working, because as a manager, part of your job is like sort of pre-planning ahead. So you have to allow that time to almost like sort of de-stress, if you like, away from the game. So that's about 3 or 4 or 5 days, and then obviously then you allow that to hit your body from a mental and physical point of view. So what I just decided to do was take the whole month of January off, completely away from football. Not been watching anything to do with football, no Sky Sports News, no nothing, anything at all. The only thing I've been sort of, if I do catch it, it's on, is a bit of Premier League football. That's it really. So I've decided that for the whole month of January. So in a month where there's transfer windows, I know once I pick it back up in February, March, there'll be a few surprises to me to see who's gone where and what when I pick it sort of back up. But it's just that time to allow yourself to come back off, reflect, recharge, and then ready to go again.
Yeah, is that adjustment different though for when you were a player to now you're in the coaching role? Is that downtime a little bit different now, or is it kind of the same?
Yeah, it's completely different from playing to managing. It's just completely different, because from when you're playing, you're just focusing on yourself. When you're managing, you're focusing on a whole group, staff, players, the whole group, ownership, everything right across the board and the football club really. So that is really, really different, and of course then all roads kind of point towards the manager and dealing with so many different aspects of the game. So when you do come off it, really as a player, you only focus on yourself. When you're doing a manager, you're focusing on the group really, and everybody's got their own means and agendas to what they want to contribute within the team and within the football club on a daily, weekly basis.
Yeah,
what's
definitely.
that? Sorry, is that kind of what's that like then? Because like coaching, I think coaching is the best thing ever, but it's so difficult at the same time. And that's from someone trying to coach where winning doesn't matter at all. It's all about development. So when it's like you said, you have a day off, but it's not a day off, is it? And it's terms of, so your mind's constantly on it, and it's kind of, we asked Nigel Clough for a bit of advice when he was on before, and his advice was like survive.
Yeah.
Kind of like what's in terms of putting it into a picture for coaches, like how stressful is it in terms of, look, obviously there's really good things to it, but like how demanding is it on yourself in terms of being a manager?
Yeah, the demands are there because a lot of the work you're doing behind the scene is probably not reflected or seen. The only bit that is reflected and seen is on a match day. But there's so much that goes hand in hand to make the match day work, and even on the match day there's so many different parameters that can go for you or against you on a match day, and some of it can be in your control, some of it cannot be in your control. And I think as an individual you have to be able to stand in those moments and recognise them and not lose yourself in those moments. So yeah, the job in the industry is about survival, because there's only so many clubs, and every season only so many teams can be successful, and that won't ever change really, in terms of the teams that get promoted or the teams that get relegated. So within that you have your game plan, your structure, your determination, your competitive edge, which never departs. So that's on a daily, weekly, monthly basis, because that never stops. And if you look at the football seasons, it's crammed into a 36 week window where you've got 3 cup competitions, 46 league games, playoffs, so it's all condensed in a real small amount of time. And that's why outside the Premier League, in the League 1, League 2, the results are so unpredictable, because the time frame to plan and prepare for games are so limited. You get 24, 48 hours to prepare for a game. Injury fatigue comes in because of the demands of it. And that's just the game, and that's the fast lane that you're in. So you think when you are from a mental point of view on a daily basis, that when you do come out of it, you need that time to decompress yourself and allow yourself some thinking time, so that when you do go back in, your thoughts are more clearer, the bits and pieces, what you've learned from it. There's so much that goes for it in this time, and that's what it is. So I can understand Nigel's comments from before we all share that, you know.
Definitely. I mean, talking about player motivation, I know this is kind of one for both of you, because obviously you're coaching and you've been working in coaching for a long time. How is that different for the both of you, if you like, you know, talking about the expectations of players at different levels, obviously like working at a grassroots level, working at a league level, how is that different for the both of you, would you say? Ash, do you want to go first?
Yeah, it's completely different. I work in boys academy football, so kind of just the expectation of players is probably just to one, turn up and they've got to enjoy it, probably the same end level, but if they ain't going to enjoy it, there's probably no point in them being there.
Absolutely,
sometimes probably managing parents' expectations more, but again the players come because one, they want to enjoy it, 2, they want to get better, and 3, they're probably going to trust you to help them develop. So kind of that's where it is. Again, it's totally different where we go on a match day and play different academies, and kind of our success is process rather than outcome. So like we don't care if we win, lose or draw, but our thing would be trying to get you to play for your left foot, for example. And if a player realise that's the motivation and we really heavily praise that, like that's success for them. Compared to probably towards yourself, which is probably some similarities, probably completely different, I'm guessing, in terms of because it's top level.
Well, the level, and you are right in terms of development, and it's rightly so, because the players hit you first before they get to me at the end of they're on the front line. So yes, there is elements of developing players because you get younger players in, but also the development for us is it's about winning. So the development side from a young player is when you're developing them, you've got to explain to them why it's important to hone in on the skills, why it's so important that you've got to get that right to your game, and you've got to get that right from a psychological point of view, as well as a physical and a technical point of view. And also then you add the tactical bits to the game. So important as a young player to get that right because of the demands of what the game is and the importance of it. So there's the development side from a young player. And then from the senior players, it's making sure that they're applying themselves and does what it says on the tin in terms of carrying out the right attributes, in terms of putting them together in the team and what they're expected to do and what the demands are. And nowadays with the players, they don't get to choose. The part is when you're playing a game on a Saturday or on a Tuesday or a midweek, players don't get to choose in terms of when they can perform. They have to perform at that time, and that's the key. And the biggest word for any player, from talking about football as a specific, because we're talking about football, is consistency is a massive word for any footballer. And the consistency is not just about doing it over 1 week, it's about doing it over a consistent basis. And that word consistency will challenge any player every single day, week, month of a footballing season to be able to perform. It's not easily achieved. And the difference with the teams at the top in leagues and the difference of the teams at the bottom is that the ones at the top are just doing it over a more consistent basis and doing the rightful things. The teams at the bottom usually find that the inconsistencies here and there, but it's a real word that it's difficult for players to reach, and when you do get it, it's about maintaining it really, because there's so many different obstacles that come in their way in terms of their private life and work balance. There's so many different things now that can interrupt that, so it's a difficult one to balance, but that's the word I'd use.
You spoke about it kind of winning. You spoke before about being at West Brom 21s, and one thing we find quite interesting is even at like the younger age you all the way up is when does winning start to play a priority? And there's always going to be winning and losing. I think it's important to know how to win and when to lose. But you go from say 18 to 21s, it's all about development and getting success for them would be into the first team. But you might know suddenly you call a player to go in your first team and you've got to be expected to know how to win and deal with the resilience of criticism and kind of probably again a different mentality. When do you reckon that importance comes in, and how is that kind of manage the transition of someone coming from a youth team to the adult team?
I think as well, before you can explain, for me, for the kids as well, is that the coaches and managers that they're working with at a younger age need to understand the difference with winning and losing as well, and what it means, because as well as explain to the kids, if the kids don't hear it from the coaches at foundation, grassroots level, development phase, then when they step into the first team, there's a real knee-jerk reaction and the demands on them, and that can see a player grow or that can see a player diminish really quickly because of the environment. So I think even from the younger ages, there should be an explanation of winning and also the losing part of it. And even in the losing part, the explanation, you can't just brush the losing under the carpet and leave it at that, because they're aspiring to get to an environment where it is really all about winning because of the demands of the game. And I think from a young age, there's got to be those two aspects really to understand, because when you do get to the front line, it is all about winning. And we know, of course, on the front line, which I said earlier, there's only so many teams that getting promoted and relegated and that. So there's a real intensity when you do cross that bridge, and I think that's the most important thing, because when you land on the front line, the competition to go and win consistently is there, and there's minimal room for error really. So you got to learn really, really quickly.
One final thing before I shoot off is you spoke there about winning and losing. How is it then in terms of managing expectations of promotion, in terms of you've gone from a team who's in terms of maybe expected to do top end and then suddenly trying to, I know players come in and change, but something with the same group of players of suddenly the expectations totally different. I've gone from winning to almost that surviving or kind of consolidate position. How is that mentally for yourself and trying to deal with that with the players in terms of the shift of expectation?
Yeah, it's different. It is a different balance, because when I've been in a situation where I've been at Sheffield Wednesday and the expectancy was to win, and you're working at a level in terms of to winning and winning consistently, and the balance strikes that when you're at home with the expectancy of the supporters, everything else, you're in a real small margin of error. You can't slip up. So the demands at home especially was winning, and there's certain teams that you're expected to win home and away. You're expected to, so that carries a different pressure, but also it carries a different pressure week in, week out at the football club and an expectancy level, but also dealing with a group of players that can handle that expectancy level. Then you might switch it to where I've been at Port Vale, where it's all about survival and staying in the division. So there's a different expectancy that you have to manage the group of players in a sense that you still have to keep them firing, but also the mindset and the level of around it is just about survival. So it's a different entity, because there's certain things that you're thinking that there's certain games that you have to make sure that you're doing well in and gain points in, and there's certain games where there may be just teams in the division that are stronger than you at the end of the day, and however well you play, if they play to the capabilities, then they'll win. So I've had the both aspects of Sheffield Wednesday and if you're looking at Port Vale at the same level and the expectancy, and it's totally different, but the same determination still lies within you to drive the organisation to reach the levels and standard that you need them to be at to achieve both goals.
Definitely. I mean, you talk about big pressure scenarios as well, playing against names such as Cristiano Ronaldo. Not a lot of people might not know that at home, but I mean, Ash, tonight you get to experience a little bit of his two
Both
former clubs, under 21 level.
Yeah,
so
shooting off now to go.
There you go. So I mean, that would be a perfect time to talk to Tom Gibson, who recently caught up with former Premier League referee Graham Scott.
Hello everyone, welcome back. Today I'm joined with former professional referee Graham Scott. Thank you for joining me and thank you for your time. Firstly, I just wanted to take you back to the start of your career, and obviously we spoke off camera before of when you first started refereeing and doing refereeing in parks on grassroots games. For the new generation of referees coming in, I just wondered what your advice would be for the new generation that are coming through from your experiences that you've had.
Well, the first thing I'd say is give it a go. It's a much more enjoyable role than people appreciate. I think you have the best seat in the house. You've got this fantastic position on the field where you're close to everything. So it is a great place to. If you can't play the game for whatever reason, I had to give up because of injury, then it's the next best thing. You pick up transferable skills to die for. So stuff that you can really use in the rest of your life around resilience, leadership, team building. Making decisions, all things that are really useful in almost every business or working environment. And then in terms of how you progress as a referee, my best advice would be to look at the people who are just ahead of you. So the people, if you're brand new, maybe people who've been refereeing for 2 or 3 years, who've kind of gone through that process recently and know what it's like to do your first game, to do your 5th game, to do your 20th game, because it takes all those building blocks really make a big difference. And you can learn a lot from them. And then as I progressed, as I moved up the ladder, I was always looking at the people one step ahead and copying the stuff that they did well, because they probably had a bit more experience than me, but also recognising they did things that I didn't like and maybe was going to make sure I didn't fall into the same traps. That's what I tried to do. Whether I did it or not is for others to judge.
And you spoke about there the resilience of a referee. When you've got to be resilient, whether you're on a grassroots pitch or if you're in the Premier League. But again, for people coming through and just referees in general, how did you deal with that and how can they deal with that? Because it's so hard when no matter what you're doing, you can't please everybody, can you?
Yeah. I mean, in many ways, refereeing at local level, particularly once you get a bit of a crowd, once you start getting about 100, 200 people, is harder than refereeing in front of 50, 60, 70,000, where you've got the protection of the simple behavioural protections that people know they're not going to come across the barriers, that you've got lots of stewards, you've got the police on hand, you've got safety, you've got some health and safety stuff put in place to protect you. You go onto the local parks and you haven't got that. So actually you can feel more vulnerable. The best way of avoiding it is finding yourself in those situations is generally to try and be really is to sweat the small stuff early in matches and to establish your authority in the game. And in every match that I ever did, someone challenged my authority early in the match. And it's usually by something they say, sometimes by something they do. By responding publicly to that and being seen to be the referee, I'm in charge, you don't get to do that. Yeah. It tended to improve behaviour across the field and among the spectators. And if you do have a situation where maybe a spectator, and certainly in children's football, it's parents who are the biggest problem, who are starting to misbehave, starting to say things, starting to question your ability or integrity, that has to be dealt with and has to be dealt with quickly. And the best way to do that, go to the clubs, put it back on them, go to the coaches and say, your spectators aren't behaving right, I need you to put it right. Because as an individual referee, especially if you're doing a children's game, you're probably under 18 yourself, so you haven't necessarily got the skill sets or the authority or the presence to deal with a parent, but their coaching staff should be doing that. And if they don't, then you're in a different space because you've put it onto them. They haven't done anything about it. Now you can escalate, and that might mean reporting to the county FA or wherever the league or whoever is the relevant governing body for that game.
Yeah. And just throughout your career, obviously refereeing, you're on the pitch with, the players, of course, and throughout your career, has there been one player where you've, from a footballing fan perspective, in a sense, where you've just thought, wow, that was an amazing performance? Who would you say the best player you've refereed in terms of a player?
Yeah, I think it probably would be Kevin De Bruyne at Manchester City. So the way Man City's set up and the way teams tended to defend against them, certainly for several years when I was involved, was they would defend very deep. And he would then receive the ball almost like a quarterback and be the person who distributed the passes. And I would be standing very close to him, and he was always seemingly at least one, if not two steps ahead of everyone else. So he would be seeing passes that, goodness me, why is he passing it there? And then the run would come, and then the ball would land, and it would be right on the sixpence, and it would be controlled first time, and the phase of play would move on. He would position his body in such a way to receive the ball in the best possible way. He could play the ball equally well with either foot, which obviously is the best advice you ever give a young player would be learn to kick with your weaker foot, so that you haven't really got a weaker foot anymore. I don't know whether Kevin De Bruyne is right-footed or left-footed. I really don't. Someone presumably does know, but he probably does. But incredible. There are other players who are very similar and similarly talented, but he did stand out to me. I remember one game in particular where I just thought, wow, so many times, what a pass. How's he seen that?
What game was that? Can you remember?
Now I can't remember. I can't remember that now. I just remember a few times when I did them that he was very much like that. So yeah.
And then obviously when you come into refereeing into the professional game, and then you've had VAR be introduced as well, from a perspective of when you've refereed without it and then you've been involved with VAR, how do you adapt to that, and what changes did you have to go through? Yeah,
so there's two sides to that, I guess. One is a technical change. So there are situations where you delay your whistle, because if you stop the game, the game's dead, and now the VAR can't get involved. So we had situations early on in the way we ran VAR. The assistant referee, if they thought a player was offside, would flag, but we would delay the whistle and the play would continue. That was really difficult to start with, because generally our training was to blow quickly, kill the game. Then if there is a shot, goalkeeper probably won't even try and save it. No one ever knows whether it would have been a goal, and everyone kind of just, even if it's wrong, they kind of, who knows? There's a mystery about it. So we did that, and that was difficult. And there were times when you literally got to this point where you put your whistle to your mouth and you're, oh no, and maybe one of your colleagues saying, no, stop. So there was that. Then you had how did you cope while a check was going on? So you've made your judgment, and the VAR tells you they're checking your decision, and you've got this pregnant pause when you don't know what their recommendation is going to be, and players are coming to you and starting to question what you've just done. So how do you play that? In my case, it's being checked. I'm not telling you I'm right. That was my judgment at the time. VAR's looking at it. And then beyond that, you had situations where you did actually have to change your decision. So you went to the monitor, you realised you were wrong, and you changed it. And that came with its own pressures around, having to process that, understand you've made an error, and now move on. And initially we found that very difficult. I think with time we found that easier, because the players actually accept the outcome better, almost always. I remember doing a game where I had to overturn a decision, and I got praised for it by the players. Oh, it's good to see a referee accept blah, blah, blah. It's like, oh, I was expecting you to question my judgment because I made a mistake. Yeah. But no, they were happier after that than they were before. So, and when you step back from it, I suppose that does make sense. But we did find that difficult to start with.
And then before VAR came in, final one from me, but has there ever been a decision that you've made where you've got it wrong, and you openly know you've got it wrong, you can't change it, that you still remember today, that still haunts you? Is there any decision like that?
Well, there's a few. I mean, there's one I did before VAR. There was one at Bristol City. It was a game against Burton Albion in League One. It was 0-0, and it was a headed goal, and I disallowed the goal for what I considered to be a push by the attacker. And when I watched it back, it's just not a foul. I mean, he puts his hands on him, but not. It's not a foul. It's like, now to make some contact. And the game finished 0-0, so it decided. I mean, it affected the outcome significantly. And I did. That must have been at least 10 years ago, and that still is in my head. So that is how we think. I mean, certainly how I think, and I think it's how most refs think, that we carry those incidents around. And I mean, post VAR, I made 2 or 3 decisions that I would say were poor. I shouldn't have got that one wrong. There's others where I can understand. Yeah, in real time, one view, standing where I was, I can understand, see why I got that one wrong, and I can live with it. Yeah. But there's been 2 or 3 probably where I think I can't believe I've missed that. I can't believe I've called it that way. So you're relieved that you've got VAR to put you right, because it's so much better from our point of view for that to be the case. As a fan in the stadium, I would say it's not worth the price you pay. It takes too long, it's too disruptive. I want to be able to celebrate goals and accept that just every now and again it probably shouldn't have stood, or see a goal disallowed that should have been allowed to stand. If I'm watching at home or as a referee, I'd say, yeah, VAR is probably a bit better. It does enhance the game because we get a fairer outcome.
Brilliant. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Because of that, really. So it was...
Welcome back to On the Grass. As you can see, Ash had to sprint off to get to Manchester tonight, but we are joined by Senior Lecturer at the University of Derby, Pete Lansley, and back with Darren. So, welcome back, Darren, for the second half of this podcast. I wanted to ask, how do you keep players motivated who are struggling with confidence in your team? How would you go about doing that?
God, there's so many different aspects that, as a manager, you can find out some bits internally what's going on with them. Some can be just loss of form on the pitch. Some can be just a confidence that there's players in front of them that are just showing a better level of consistency. Some can be private at home, and I've dealt with all 3 situations where sometimes the one when it's more private in their lives are more probably challenging, because you have to be a real supportive role, and even though the player may be an important player within the team, one that would be in your first 11, but also if that individual's dealing with certain problems at home, you have to help them and support them through that. And even when you see things on a match day not quite going his way, and the outside pressures are coming his way, i.e. from the supporters, you're still within that supporting that individual. It's really important that players felt supported from the manager. So that's a different type of pressure, and that will be a listening ear to them and a supportive role model to them. Players that are just losing confidence within the team, that's just training at the training ground, on the training ground, working at different scenarios and different aspects, and giving them a different mindset and a different technical approach on it, depending on what he's struggling within the game. And some can just be decision making, which is another different one, because you can always get a player in the mindset of making the right decisions, but in retrospect, when it comes, and there's so many grey areas on the football pitch, and so many, you can't recreate the same scenario he may face in the training ground. You can only create certain scenarios, but it'll still come down to that individual to be in that mindset. So there's so many different challenges as a manager that you try and reflect back when you was a player, but also you try and hedge in terms of when you're coaching and trying to work on the training ground or trying to get in the classroom. But also as well, it's the individual player as well, opening up and to those insecurities that he's feeling within, that you can bridge that gap.
Yeah, I mean, you talk about your experience as a professional level. In terms of grassroots as well, I mean, you mentioned that players at the professional level can play in front of stadiums of thousands of people, but at grassroots it's not like that. There's maybe a couple of hundred people if they're lucky, and it means you can hear a lot more of this abuse targeted towards players. What would your advice be to grassroots coaches to help deal with that and get around issues like that?
God, well, you're definitely right that I actually think it's harder because it feels more personable.
Yeah,
I think when you're in an arena, it gets drowned out, the noise, and you just kind of work in it. But when it's in a sort of a lesser where there is a couple hundred fans, you can hear those personal insults. Is it? And the biggest thing what I would say to it is as an individual is, no matter what, know your self-worth, and know what you're bringing to the team, and know the mindset and the confidence that you are bringing to the team. So when these comments are made to you, and sometimes the comments do seep in and imbibe in that, you've got to remember what your self-worth with the team from the off. And I think if you can always go back to that stage in terms of what am I doing to the team, what am I bringing to the team, what am I trying to do, where is my heart, where's my determination at to see this team successful, I want you to focus on those bits than a comment that's just been made over a simple movement, what happened, and a comment that was made on that specific movement, because that's not going to define you as that individual person. And I think that would be my my advice to any player at grassroots level.
Definitely.
I've got one there. If I can just jump in,
Yeah.
I'm going to ask you in a minute, Darren, what the worst is you've been on the end of. Okay, and I'll tell you mine. So when I was managing Wirksworth Colts, and we had a game up north, somewhere up on the edge of Yorkshire, and I was assistant manager and I was running the line, and I wasn't very good as a linesman. Have to admit it. It was worse than my coaching, worse than my teaching, and this guy, he came on the pitch in the middle of the game, so the game had to stop, and he came up to me, he said, "You're an absolute cheat, you effing Southern Sea."
Oh dear.
I said, "Oi, less of the Southern, I'm from Wolverhampton." But and actually everyone laughed and it did help, that was lucky. Could have gone badly wrong. But what's the worst one you've been on the end of, either as a player or a coach?
I think for me, probably the worst, probably as a player is that, and I won't mention the two clubs in question because it'd be unfair for me to sort of tar them with the same brush because they've moved on from that time. But when I was playing really well at the time, it was both an away games, and then I had a little bit of racial abuse from the fans, only because when I look at it, I was the thorn in the side for them in terms of how I was playing, and my reaction was to play even better.
Right.
But
know your own worth.
So it'd be horrible for me to go now and mention the clubs now because that wouldn't be right for me to do that. But that was that at the time, and probably that was the worst. But also I went straight back to that thing is to know your self-worth and what you're doing, and actually it was a driver for me to do even better. So that was this time, and that's probably been the worst really that I probably felt really. Other than that, pinch of salt really.
Yeah. Do you think? It's interesting. We touched on this in the summer when Archie and I were chatting to you. But in the 6 months or so, have you when we talk about racism in football?
Yeah.
You know, and you're a bit of a sort of standard bearer.
Yeah.
And we're very proud of you in that here at Derby. It's one of the reasons why you got the honorary fellowship. The fact, the way you speak up. Yeah. Do you think things have changed? Do you think they're improving? Obviously, we've got Liam Rossinio who's come in at Chelsea, who's
fantastic.
A good role. Ex-Derby.
Yeah, fantastic.
Do you think things are changing for the better? Should we be taking the knee still? Has that lost its worth?
I think that's the taking the knee was always supported by us towards the players. We have to remember that the taking of the knee was the players' stance to show outwardly, visibly, that's what they're doing in support of it. We as football clubs, governing bodies, organisations, managers was supporting the players. So it was something that was done by the players and supported worldly by us towards the players in a united stance against it really. probably that's gone away now and served its purpose, and the governing bodies are looking at ways and means. When you look at now throughout all the broadcasting and that, throughout not just football but other games as well, they have logos, banners, talking about equality purposes and everything else going forward, which is great. So that's had a real significance in terms of promoting the message out there of equality right across the board, and something that we don't want it to hinder our sports, because we want to try and create the beautiful game. Has it changed? It's changed in the fact that there's more media platforms that can report on them. It's changed that we are trying to get the message out that instead of organisations and that sorting it out, you as an individual, if you are in that vicinity, has the power of sorting it out, because I think nobody doesn't want to have that shame factor on them. So yes, that's a pressure now, that where it's changed. So that's a good thing, because it's brought a little change. Is there still much work to do? Absolutely. There's more reporting on it. There's more governing bodies supporting it. There's more people throughout the fraternity of sports, not just football, but sports in general as a whole, supporting that to bring that equality right across it. Have we seen a significant change within the game? Yeah, in other areas, but there's still work to be done on it. Great to see Liam in at Chelsea, Do you know him? Yeah, and somebody that, deserves it, worked incredibly hard, and somebody I just know that will do well there because of his determination, how he's promoted himself, how he's worked incredibly hard, and he's in with the elite. And managing against the elite, but that's what he's worked hard to do. So we wish him and support him all the very, very best.
I'm going right off script here, Archie. Don't worry about it. But we're talking about those issues. How much do you think? I read the other day that Germany were thinking of boycotting the World Cup because of the Gaza situation. How much do you think football and politics, or football and these political issues, should merge, and how much should they be separate?
God, Pete,
I'm throwing it. This wasn't in the script. Sorry about that. Come back, Ash.
I think for football, rather than me getting politically correct in that, because it's not my domain to step on toes like that. I think football should just be played as it is and bring that equality. And if you can bring that right across it, football's an equality. If you look at the dynamics of football, and you look at the fans and how mixed race and multicultural football is, but we promote a oneness right across it. If football is to serve as a project towards that, then great, because that means everybody's across the board. But for me to go in and pick a certain side or do this would be wrong.
Gotcha.
What I'd want to say is just let football, in terms of the message that we promote in quality, that everybody's inclusive in it, let that speak its volumes on that situation. That would be my stance on it.
Yeah. What's your
Definitely.
stance?
No, I agree with you there. I mean, I wanted to talk. I found it really interesting earlier. You said about kind of letting the football do the talking for you as a player when people were giving you racist messages. I mean, an example of that for me would be Antoine Semenyo for Bournemouth against Liverpool, first game of the season, getting racist abuse. Of course, the fan was ejected from the stadium, but then goes on to score 2 goals. I mean, it's a perfect response, isn't it, as a player, I assume, for you to just ignore and move on with your game.
Yeah, and the support what Antoine got from everybody, not even that, from the Liverpool fans.
Yeah.
I mean, that speaks volumes, and that's a great, the biggest message really. And the mere fact he goes on, and what an iconic figure in the game. We've seen the success now. He's made a wonderful move, and he's carrying on to excel in the game. And that's the best way you can respond, because you just let your football do the talking, and then let the outside forces do your talking for you, and that was a perfect scenario.
Definitely. I mean, I wanted to kind of shift gears a little bit as you head towards the end of this episode. You have managed across all 4 divisions in England. I think that's quite an interesting stat. I wanted to talk, how do you manage different situations between, let's say, comparing League 2 to the Premier League, 2 completely different ends of the footballing kind of pyramid. How do you approach that as a manager?
I think they are different, but they're just on a bigger scale.
Yeah.
So that's the big. I think Premier League, everything's just on a bigger scale. There's more scrutiny on it. There's more on the team. There's more media coverage. But what I find is working at the Premier League level, you get your weeks more planned out. So working at Premier League level, you get Monday, Tuesday, you get a Wednesday was a day off, you get Thursday, you get Friday. So technically you could get on classroom sessions, 4 sessions in the classroom, you could get possibly 5, probably if not more sessions on the grass. So you absolutely detail, and you play a game on a Saturday at 3 o'clock, or sometimes if you was at West Brom, you'd probably play on a Sunday or Monday, on a Super Sunday. So your week's more planned out. When you're working below that, you have a lot of midweek games. So the turnaround of games is so quick, and you're so detailed, and your work is so compressed in a small amount of time. So actually working at the Premier League, when you finish a game on a Saturday, Premier League managers say, okay, they're still on it, but you've got a Sunday, you've got a Monday, you've got a Tuesday, a Wednesday, you've got a Thursday, you've got a Friday. So you're more detailed to work on a structure. When you're playing on a Tuesday in a midweek game, you have to compress, you've got to change, you've got to adapt, you've got to work with injury, suspensions, loss of form, fatigue.
Yeah.
There's so many elements that you've got to work at, really, that's different. And I'm really grateful to work at 4 divisions, and my outlook at the football is, as long as the plan is, it's a challenge for me. I've always displayed that working at any level really within the game is a pleasure for me. I'm grateful for it, and just determined to want to succeed at that level, and to be able to sit here and work at 4 divisions and played at 4 divisions is quite unique, really. So, and I'm grateful for it.
Yeah, we spoke about the challenges before we began this episode today about you coming up against Mikel Arteta.
Yeah.
Of course, Arsenal faced Port Vale in the Carabao Cup, and we talked about your experience with him. But can you just explain what that was like, being alongside Arteta on the touchline? Was it intimidating for you at all? What was the experience like?
For me, I just embraced the moment. I really did, in every aspect, really. To come up against Mikel, a present-day manager now that hopefully will see him go on and win the Premier League, which is what he desires to do, and the way he is, to go up against that elite manager and team, to witness that at first class was good. For me, to feel what it is in terms of his decision making and what he was doing on this time on the side of the pitch, picked up so much. And also the level I spoke earlier about in the early part of the podcast about players reaching a consistent level. Everything what I spoke to the players about reaching that consistency and that high level of performance, the boys felt at Port Vale for first hand. They saw what it took at first hand, and they saw what it feels like to be at the very, very top of the game, and they saw it. And I was able to live out that moment in terms of the information given to the team. But for me as an individual, going up one of the best in football was a real special moment for me. So for me, it was a moment that I embraced. For me, it was a moment that I've learnt a lot, and I'll be ever grateful for it.
Yeah.
Can I ask, did you get a chance to have some time with him after the game? Did you pick his brains at all?
Not really, Peter. Just before, quick words when we obviously with the referee, and then after the game, he just wished us really, really well going forward. But it was really, really grateful and a humbling man, really, and of course he's just got his eye focused on success this season, and you wouldn't bet against him at the moment.
That's right. And when I heard what you were saying to Archie about taking January, take a breather, I completely understand that, decompress. When you are ready to go back into the game, what sort of qualities would you be looking for from a potential employer? Because your record speaks for itself. Okay, Port Vale are near the bottom of the table, so these things happen.
Yeah.
But you got them up. You've had sustained success.
Yeah. The skill sets that obviously since managing is, I'm so grateful that right across the board in terms at different levels of the game, I'm so grateful to show that successful at each level really within the game, so you keep your gauge wide open, Pete. It's not, I'm not going to put myself in a certain category. What I will do is that the skill set shows that I've worked in all 4 divisions. The skill set shown that I've been successful in it. The skill set show that I've been at the other end of the table where it's probably not been as successful, but you learn so much from it now, and you reach a point in your managerial career where you've had a sustainability of so many games. So when you the next opportunity comes, you're that more experienced, you've learnt more, and you're more fresher and engaged to step back in. So for me at the moment, it's just keeping a real broad perspective, really, an open perspective. The bits we'll say is that should the next one come, they've all been challenging in their own way, and I've always felt it in my heart really to go into it. And that's one thing, once I do go into it, I go into it fully. And grateful for it. But the moment was just taking that backward step to reflect, to refocus, and then the next bit to be about re-engaging back into it and getting back into it. And where that leads me, we'll wait and see.
When you do reflect, you've had so many clubs across your playing and managing career. If there was one club who was going to give you the best reference, who and what would it be? And if there was a club who you might not need to name, who were going to give you the worst reference, what would those two bits of reference be? What would people say about you? The best and the most beloved?
I think the best would be that once you get Darren Moore, you get him fully. Really, he's fully into it, and he takes everything into his stride. But he's really determined to succeed and bring everybody along with him. Probably the other side of it was probably not I don't know, changing things or doing things. It's really difficult, or probably expressing myself and making myself too paper thin right across clubs, because as a manager you want to do everything but you can't do everything.
Got you.
So they'd probably look and think at the other side is that I've probably done too much of the other side of things and thinning myself out too many against too many fields as opposed to probably focusing on one. And I think that's probably been the biggest thing probably I've probably picked up, because as a manager you can't do everything at once really. So there's specifics that you got to focus on and stay focused on, and there's other things that will come in the way of that. But you've got to recognise and see them and just put them on the back burner.
Excellent.
So I think now they're talking about the managing side of things is a good time to go into a kind of a little game. We like to have fun on this podcast. So I'm going to explain the rules. So I'm going to have a list of 10 different coaches / managers, and it's basically going to be winner stays on. So I'm going to name 2 and you're going to say I prefer this one, and then it's going to go across the list.
Okay.
So if I was to give you 2 and it's basically winner stays on.
Is it that he's going to think he's best, or he likes him best, or what?
Who do you prefer to work with?
Oh,
okay.
Oh, that's a different topic.
So none of what you've just mentioned. Okay, so I'll start with 2 and then we'll progress. So you just pick out of the 2 who you'd want, and then it'll be that person and someone else. Okay. So the first 2, Pep Guardiola or Vincent Kompany?
Oh, Guardiola.
Pep Guardiola or Diego Simeone?
Simeone.
Diego Simeone or Luis Enrique?
Simeone.
Diego Simeone or Hansi Flick?
Simeone.
Diego Simeone or Arne Slot?
Simeone.
Okay. Diego Simeone or Jurgen Klopp?
Oh,
that's a tough one.
Passionate man.
I'm gonna go Simeone.
Diego Simeone or Martin O'Neill?
Met Martin loads of times, but again, Simeone. There's a pattern developing here.
Diego Simeone or Thomas Tuchel?
Simeone again.
Okay, and then final one, Diego Simeone, quite a local one, or Nigel Clough?
Good man, Nigel, but Simeone.
So Simeone's come out the winner against quite a lot of managers there.
Yeah.
I mean, I know it's a bit of fun. Yeah, I was going to say, do you want to give us a reason why?
Yeah, the reason for me is he is the manager in world football that I admire the most, really. And the reason why is how he's transformed Atletico Madrid over a decade has been remarkable, really. To get that club where he's challenging for La Liga titles against Real Madrid and Barcelona, to get them in the Champions League where they are. The whole culture, the ethos of the football club, he's done it from top to bottom, really.
Definitely.
And maintains that loyalty with them and driven status with them, that he doesn't rest back on his laurels, really. And he's so driven. But to do that over that consistent time has been quite remarkable, really. And I suppose you could share the same with Pep Guardiola's along those.
It's elite level mentality.
It's to be driven for that long, and I would put him in that category. You could put Pep Guardiola in that, and the reason why I was umming and ahhing with Jurgen Klopp, because Klopp did it for 8-9 years at Liverpool. So that's the reason why I put those three, and that's why it was really hard when I came with Guardiola and Jurgen Klopp, because to do that, the energy that you need for that and the driven, it's remarkable, really.
I also think Simeone's a little bit underrated as well. Like, you know, you get the praise of a lot of these top level, you know, European managers, but I also feel Simeone's kind of underneath that in terms of like fans' opinions. I don't know about you, Pete, but I always think that he's never spoken about on the same level, which is quite a shame, because I think he is quite.
He's become Mr. Atletico, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Would he succeed if you put him in at Liverpool or Arsenal or Barca?
If Guardiola leaves Manchester City,
Munich,
would you replace him with Simeone?
It's so difficult, because there's a cultural difference and a mentality, and it really is different. And the Premier League is proven one of the toughest leagues to adapt to for some of the most elite coaches in the world of football. The Premier League is different. The football is different. The power of the Premier League, there's so much power that is not realised that we have in our English Premier League, to the La Liga, the German Bundesliga. There's so much power here, really.
What power, as in financial power?
Financial power, and physical power.
Oh, I see. Yeah.
On the pitch, it really is. Our Premier League is dominant, really. And that's where it's a real cultural change. And just like the same with some of our managers going abroad, where the game may seem a little bit more slower and everything else, there's a huge difference, really. So that's the reason why I've gone for Simeone and those are the two managers, because of the sustainability. It's just remarkable what they've done at the level and continue to do it.
Absolutely, I agree. I mean, if we're bringing this back just to finish up on a grassroots level, I just wanted to get your thoughts. What is your kind of opinion? I think we've got the clock on this again, if that's all set up. But I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on what is your final piece of advice that you'd give to grassroots coaches, because I know obviously on the grass it's very important to us talking about grassroots football and how coaches and their mentality. You talk about at the highest level in the Champions League and in Europe, but what about at a grassroots level? I don't know if the time is ready yet.
And what would the question be at a grassroots level?
Yeah, so
are they aspiring to go up?
Yeah, so I mean,
are they aspiring to stay?
Yeah, so if they're looking to advance to a higher level, I'd say as well.
Yeah. Okay.
What would your advice be?
Okay, so
time is on.
The advice for me, for a grassroots level coach aspiring to make headway in the game, is have a game plan. And with that game plan, you've got to have bits in between where you want to achieve and get to, and have those aspirations and consistently work on it. And even with the knockbacks you get in it, it's an opportunity for you to learn to keep moving forward. But never lose sight of that plan, and within it, have steps within that to gain that optimal goal.
Oh, perfect timing. There we go. Brilliant. Even got the whistle as well. Well, that seems like a perfect time, Darren, to kind of conclude today's episode. I mean, thank you so much again for joining us. I know it's not quite Pride Park Stadium in the backdrop, but Pete, thanks again for being on this one as well. Thank you everyone at home for watching and listening to this episode with Darren Moore today. If you want more episodes like this, make sure to follow us on YouTube and Instagram as well, where you see shorter clips of today's episode. Thank you very much for watching. I've been Archie Brown, the host today for On The Grass. I'll see you all soon. Thank you.